Hello there, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again for another Demystifying Post-Production Monday. And we have with us Darrin and Chad and Elly. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
What's up, everyone?
And we're especially delighted to welcome Christine. Christine Goldby is the Senior Product Manager for After Effects at Adobe. So thanks for joining us, Christine.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us from different locations as well. And thanks for saying hi on the questions. That you're used to this now. You can type in the questions, we can answer, and we can put text answers and ask your questions as we're going along. So this is week 3 of using C4D Lite with After Effects. And we also have many other sessions that are coming up. So I just wanted to give you a quick reminder about where you can find out more of those. Oh, thank you, Susie. Sue's saying thank you for these workshops. We're delighted. We're doing it as a group with you. So if you're liking these, then that makes it all worthwhile. Thank you so much. And what I've got on the screen here is the events page from the Maxon.net website, where you can go in, just go on to news, and then go scroll down to events, and you can see all the various sessions that we're doing coming up. And including this Thursday, we're going to be joined by master trainers, Jonas and Noseman, or Thanasis, as you might know him, and talk about refractive materials and nested dielectrics, which is going to be very interesting and setting up very realistic renders. So please join us for that and have your questions ready. And we've also got on Friday, Seth and Hush's regular VFX breakdown show, which we're very excited about. And we're very excited about next month because, as well as all the other shows we got coming, Elly is doing a hands-on with Redshift. So an intro for beginners for Redshift. And that's, yes, this has been popular and very popular and much requested, especially off the back of Elly's intro to Cinema 4D. And everyone's talked about how useful it is, the way that you lead people through that, Elly. So apart from anything else, we're very excited for it. But have you got something to say to entice people to come along?
Yeah, so it starts next Wednesday, and I'm so excited. I literally cannot wait. And I guess so you can go onto the events page and you can register and you can read about the topics that we're going to cover over the 4 weeks. But I guess some of the most important things to talk about is if you don't have access to Redshift, then don't worry, because we are extending the trial of Maxon 1 for the whole of February, for the whole of the workshop or the course. So just download that, drop us an email at training@maxon.net, and we'll extend that so you can kind of, take part of that workshop and see if Redshift is for you. As well as there's a converted kit bash kit. So I converted one of their free NeoCity kits for Redshift because they don't actually supply it for Cinema 4D. So that's going to be, for free for you guys to use as well. Amongst, session recordings, project files, all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah.
Fantastic. So that's the whole idea, really, for people to follow along and practice as you're going through, isn't it?
Yeah, so there'll be enough project files and they'll be building everything from scratch, and I'll supply kind of like the starting file, the end file, and you can kind of just like mess around with everything, break it all down, and then yeah, follow along as we learn some cool things in Redshift.
Fantastic, very exciting. Especially exciting for all that free kit bash assets you've got together for that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to try and put together some other textures as well, and some kind of like wet maps. So when we do like we can make like like a wet floor, like a wet asphalt floor, and we get some nice reflections. And so yeah, I'll put together a whole bunch of stuff this week, ready for next Wednesday when we can
Excellent.
start.
And as Marcos in the questions has just said, we love your teaching style, Elly. So we do. So thank you for saying that, Marcos.
Love you guys.
And if you miss any of the sessions, either ones that we're doing on this series, or if you miss one of Elly's sessions, you can watch it again because we share everything on our Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. And you can just go to YouTube, search for us, and we have many hours of these training sessions for the last number of years. And in fact, if you scroll down to where is it? Demystifying post-production. Then you can catch the last 2 sessions in this series, C4D Lite for After Effects. So please have a look at that. And also, we want to say thank you as a community for attending these sessions and joining us as we progress. So we want to give you a free t-shirt. So regular viewers will have seen that we do this quite often. But if you go to the handouts section on the webinar software, then you'll see a little PDF which looks like this. And then it gives you the link to where you can go. So there's a special secret link to go to that merch store. And you have to have a password, which is 3D Effects. And you get the t-shirt for free. We can't work out how to give you the shipping for free. That's the whole long technical reason for that. So it costs about $3 or $4 or 3 or 4 euros. But you get a nice shiny Maxon t-shirt for free. So of your choosing in your size and your color as well. So just a little thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Fantastic, great. So let us jump into the topic for this week. And I believe, Chad, you're going to be showing us the first few steps for this, aren't you?
That is correct. Well,
Okay.
kind of. I mean, I'm gonna be starting, but I'm just gonna be kind of giving like a little shout out to Christine, some tools that Christine developed that are really helpful for dealing with visual effects. So it's kind of like a little bubble, a little appetizer, if you will, and
Now I'm gonna be all embarrassed.
of training. So yeah. So how
Let
can
me
I
send
steal
the
the screen from you?
Oh, you've stolen it already, okay.
I've stolen already? I'm still
Oh, no.
seeing your.
Okay, all right. Let me make you a presenter.
Oh man, I hate when I steal stuff. I don't even realize I steal stuff. Okay, here we go. All right, now are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so the two things that, let's see, go to webinar out of the way. The two things that I want to show you are both in the VFX suite. They are the Spot Clone Tracker and the Kingpin Tracker. Actually, I think I'm just gonna jump ahead to the Kingpin Tracker really quick because that example turned out less cool, because this is something I just did for the CG event in Russia, and this presentation is on the Maxon YouTubes if you want to see it, where it looks a little bit better. But I just switched this from PC to Mac, and then the colors are all wonky and some of the stuff isn't carrying over. It looks weird. So I'm just going to cover this really quick first. But I was having this issue where I created this dude out of form who looked much better than he does now. You're just going to have to take my word for that. And so it was kind of like a hologram guy, and he was like floating here, and there's this kind of like moving camera. So then I had this problem where it was like, how am I going to get this character's reflection tracked into the ground? Because the reflection was being caused by the reflection effect inside the VFX suite, which is like my favorite tool, like one of the best things ever, especially since they added the ability to use maps to displace the reflection. So I had a really amazing looking reflection here. But the way that reflection works is that it gives you kind of like these 2 points to create a plane, and then this other point to determine like how you're going to create that reflection, the length of the reflection, the direction of the reflection, all that kind of stuff. So
Chad,
then I was kind of,
just before you
yeah.
jump a bit more into this, we should
Yes.
probably just explain where we're going, because we do have things that we want to show for Cinema 4D and 4D Lite and also After Effects. But one of the amazing things about having Christine on the show is that she's worked with us for many years and was one of the guiding people behind the series of tools that Red Giant have made for VFX Suite. So what we wanted to show you is how you are compositing various different elements, 3D and 2D, inside After Effects, and how you might do that. And we've got a whole series of different topics that we're covering through this hour, but that's why we're just jumping in quickly here, because we wanted to make sure we had a few minutes to show this before we inevitably run out of time at the end.
Yes, so this is going to be like 5 minutes, and then Darren's going to be spending the whole time in Light and CineWare. But I have these like reflection points, but there are these 3 points, and I couldn't figure out what do you track that has 3 points. There are point trackers, there are planar trackers, but what can we do? So I actually used a Kingpin Tracker, which gives me 4 points, And then what I did is I tracked these 3 points with where I wanted the reflection to be, and I use expressions to just kind of link this up back to the reflection, which created a perfect locked on 3-point reflection. And so I didn't really have to be very careful with Kingpin Tracker about where these points were. I just kind of like slapped them down in this chaos, and these 3 points were exactly where I wanted it, and it saved my life. So that was like a fun trick. The other thing really quick is a spot clone tracker. And this is not a very sexy example, but that's kind of the point. A lot of times when, like nowadays, because VFX is so widespread, you know, it's not like we make dragons breathing fire and all that kind of cool stuff all the time. Like sometimes we get to do that stuff, but a lot of times what we're doing is a lot of just like cleanup work. David Fincher is known for using visual effects all over the place all the time in, you know, his dramatic movies, but they are very simple cleanup-y type things. So I found this like stock piece of footage, and it's like this really cool clip of, you know, this this woman walking here, and it's like a really cool wide open parking lot-ish thing. But there are these kind of like little splotches, and now like modern audiences, you know, we see little bits and pieces like that, and those become really distracting. And so a lot of visual effects is kind of goes to art directing. So using Spot Clone Tracker, I could just, so let me go ahead and just like add one really quick right here. So Spot Clone Tracker, one of my all-time favorite effects ever. So I basically just move this like orange thing on whatever I want fixed, and I move the blue thing on whatever I want to get data from, and I just click the play button to move in time, and it's going to set keyframes for this orange thing, but not for the blue thing. So I can change the source from wherever I want. And as far as like cleaning stuff up, like shot cleanup, this is just an instantaneous, super quick, easy thing. And kind of like Photoshop, for used to that, we could not only just dummy clone, like the clone stamp in After Effects, but we could also repair. We could repair texture. We could texture the clone. We have all kinds of possibilities. And this makes this so easy. This thing, so I covered up the top splotch, the middle splotch, and the bottom splotch, and it took me just like a matter of just like a few minutes to clean this up. And you can see that that just looks amazing. It's tracked, it's a tracker, so it's like built into the footage. And these are like really two great tools that come in handy for me all the time, thanks to Christine and all of her genius leadership and stuff.
Not just me, big team, you know, team of people.
Yeah,
yes.
But still, like,
it's a very cool product, I have to say. I'm a big fan of all of them.
Yeah, right.
This kind of answers the question. The kind of assumed question is, how can you quickly do fixes in After Effects without having to load up the tracking capabilities? And there's all sorts of it depends answers for that, and we've run sessions on this. Jonas ran 3 one-hour sessions looking at tracking in After Effects and then comparing it with tracking in cinema. But this is an interesting take on what if you want to do something really quickly and it's not too complex to do, there's not too many things moving in front of the objects that you want to track and so on, and how can you do this and get on with the rest of your life?
Yeah, the cloning in After Effects has always been like one of the most annoying things, because you have to clone, you have to, you know, track the point, you have to track the point that it's cloned from, and then there's just millions of these esoteric parameters that are all named position. When you use the After Effects built-in stuff, it's just an absolute nightmare. And Spot Clone Tracker has like this pretty UI with like different colors. It's like changed the whole world of like replacement for me. I'm like so grateful for these amazing tools that make everything so much easier.
Richard's got a quick question on this, which I know the answer to, but I wanted to ask the team here. Can you create samples in Photoshop for Spot Clone Tracker, similar to content-aware fill in After Effects?
Similar to content-aware fill. I
did a 20-second tip on this about a year ago, so you can.
Yes.
I'll put that link. But that would be a good one, Christine. in terms of thinking, when would you do that? When would you just get something that covers up a spot, and when would you delve into content-aware fill in After Effects?
So if I were doing this, because I did a lot of this back when I was doing production work, if it was something that maybe the lighting isn't changing a lot, like if the scene is just literally a couple seconds of it moving, it might be, it would probably work just as well either way. But let's say that you had something that doesn't have to go into shadow, doesn't have a lot of lighting changes. You might just do a quick paint on it in Photoshop, get a patch that looks nice, that you like the way it's working, and use that instead. But if it's going to be something like on someone's face and they're turning around, they're talking a lot, being able to choose just an area that's nearby so that its lighting and everything will shift as well, rather than painting something specific in Photoshop that you would then have to modify throughout the shot. Or of course, if you don't even have a clean spot that you can pick that you're happy with, and you want to paint something in Photoshop and then use that to track in. Those would be the two quick ideas I can think of.
That sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And Chad, do you have another quick example that you wanted to show before we jump into?
That's it.
Right.
That's the whole deal.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, Darrin, go ahead.
So like, Chad, if you wanted to remove like one of those, that rightmost up arrow, like how many clicks?
Like over this?
Yeah, like if you just want to remove that one, how many clicks would that be?
Well, it's kind of like the old, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop commercials back in the 70s? Let's see.
This should not take much. This looks like the kind of, yeah, exactly. 1, 2, 3.
You remember that owl? The
Yes.
owl? One.
Perfect.
And then he would bite the whole thing. So like, however many steps that was.
The world will never know. That was,
And
I think it was 3. I think you got the 3.
And then you
Like,
click the plus, the little tracking thing, and then it like tracks this, and it follows that arrow.
Oh,
wow. And I'll see if I just like stop
and this
it here.
should be a good one where honestly, this is a good case where the perspective is changing. That would suck if you had to paint a just single frame and then figure out how to make that match. By being able to choose something, you'll probably have better results if you choose your source right up next to it rather than underneath it because of the perspective shift. But it'll take care of that without you having to do basically any work. So yeah, spot clone.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, like I didn't do the whole thing, but like, I mean, it's an amazing track. It's amazing clone. It like
and
looks
it'll track the
incredible.
scale too. So if that shifts in scale as it's going along, that would cover the whole thing. Yeah, it's a very nifty tool.
That's genius. That's really great.
and it's
Good
cool
job,
to
Christine.
that it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. It can be like, elliptical.
Yeah, you've got the 4 points, so it's hard to make, let's say, a like hard cornered square per se. That was a request at the time, but last time I've dealt with it. But you do have those 4 points that you can shift to make an awful lot of different, to cover a lot of different shapes.
Yeah, and there's the feather is adjustable too if you want to like make a tighter edge or harder edge or a softer edge or whatever. Like, yeah, you got a lot of options in here.
That's so cool. Thanks,
yeah, right? I think so. You're welcome.
Yeah.
There's a quick question on this from Isaac. He's talking, how would you compare this to, say, Mocha Pro? And that's an interesting topic to answer because, of course, you have a version of Mocha in After Effects.
You do.
What do you think,
For something
Chris?
like this is a great example of when I would use spot clone compared to Mocha because it's such a simple little one, and getting into Mocha, setting it up. Mocha is so powerful and you can do so much with it, but it's not necessarily the easiest tool once you get in there. And there's a fair amount of setup required versus, as you just saw Chad do, this was 3 clicks essentially. This is a much faster way to deal with something pretty simple like this.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's like seconds to take something out of a shot. And like with Mocha, there's just a lot more involvement, that kind of thing.
And spot clone's fast. Spot clone tracker is a very fast renderer, and yeah, it's great for this type of shot.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So if I was doing a segue between topics, I could say something like, you could use spot clone instead of having to open up and re-render your entire scene if there was a small little detail. But what if you wanted to open up and do a render of your entire scene and use C4D Lite in After Effects? I wonder how we would do that.
I think
What
I
a
might have
good segue.
something.
You must be a pro. That's amazing, Simon.
That's pretty good.
So let
How do
me
I surrender it over to Darrin.
I can make Darrin present and that will automatically.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think I have something exactly for that, Simon. Let's go. Let's
Oh
go
my
over
God, it's got Simon in it.
It will. It will. So,
I thought a quick glimpse there for a second. That was exciting.
so I wanted to show. First, I want to show like the different stages. So this is the render out of Light. Everything here was made with Light. I'm going to show you how I did a couple of things in Light where we don't have the cloner, but there are some cool functions and tools we can use. And then I take this, took this into After Effects, and I actually have a render, and this is actually shared with you guys. Where is it? Where are we going? Demystifying shared projects. Yeah, so I got the final render in here.
There he is.
I actually replaced the footage. Let's repeat that. And mute. So I've replaced the screens, and the thing that's so cool about this is that I'm using some of the Red Giant universe tools to get this this stuff to really like look like it's contributing to the atmosphere. So if I stop like around, let's pause it, like right here on the side, you can see how the screen is actually casting illumination into this this haze that actually came from Cinema 4D. So there's some cool stuff going on, but it's that footage, replacing the footage, I think is a big deal in getting all the 3D data. So, but there's a couple of things that we need to do in order to actually get that information out of the objects in Light. So I think if I jump out of here, out of this camera, and we examine this, there's a whole bunch of lights that I got set up, and I can actually use this filter to hide those from the view. There are still some others that are being instanced, and so we're seeing those. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little upside down arrow, which gives me a list of all the objects, and I'll go lights, and let's see, does that do it? No. And I'll just double click on this little icon here, and that will select all of the lights in the scene. And now I can go to the basic properties and visible in editor, I can set that to off. So cool, so now we can really just see the scene itself. So it's actually pretty basic. Okay, but the cool thing is how webcam closed by organizer. Okay, but the cool thing is how I can get these like arrangements and model this geometry in Light. So let me show you real quick. I'm going to go to a new project here, and I'm going to load up a disk. And there are, let's see, some segments here. That's cool. Let's go to like, let's see, that's good. I like this number 10 because there's like a straight line across the middle, and then there's like a flat segment on the top and the bottom. And then I make this editable by going here or hitting the C key. And then what I want is just one of these, really. Actually, you know what? I don't want them to be pointed. So I'm going to go to inner radius and bring that up like that. Okay, now I'll make it editable with the C key. And in polygon mode, I can use my selection tool to select this one. Okay, and then I can invert that selection. U, or hit U, then I, and delete those, okay? Now what I want to do is I want to take this one segment and I want to essentially clone it, but we don't have the cloner. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go to the, let's see if I can remember it. I'm going to go back to model mode here. Let's see, I think it's under tools. Yeah, we have these commands here, which are actually like really great. So I'm going to go to, I think I want duplicate. And then I can say that I want like 10 of them. I'm just going to hit apply. Okay, real time is on, so I can like change this to like circle and zoom out. And now I can like play with the radius and like bring those in. And, you know, I can play with all of these settings. None of these are keyframeable. It's just sort of like, I'm just sort of setting it up, you know, how I want it. And, you know, then I stop. So, you know, I'll say like, that's cool. And then I have all of these separate segments, but it did not create instances, which actually I would have preferred. So I'm going to undo. And then I'm going to call back that tool right there. And then click apply, but this time I'm going to go instance for the clone mode. So now I'm going to have these instances, and I want that because what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this one segment. I'm going to go to the edge because I actually have, if we go back here, they're actually like sort of tilted, but I didn't just rotate them. I actually went into edge mode here and selected this one edge, and then I just pulled that down. Now, one of the problems is these are infinitely thin, right? It's like thinner than paper. I mean, there's no thickness. It's completely unrealistic. So to add some thickness, we actually have a deformer in Light that allows us to do that. Normally, this is something that we would do in the full version with like the cloth, the cloth surface, the cloth subdivision surface, which we don't have here, but we do have the explosion effects. So I'm gonna actually hold Shift while adding that to the selected segment object, and that makes it a child. Now, I actually don't want the explosion, so I'll put the time down to 0, but look, it actually made them all like much thicker. And that's actually right here under cluster, we can set a thickness. So that's actually how I got the thickness on those segments. And essentially what you just saw with like that, oh, what was that command? With the duplicate command, I did the same thing with the outer cubes, but those are along a spline. And that just sort of adds something for, you know, the reflections in these materials. And if you don't recall, this screen actually, and these lights actually came from the asset browser. So if we go to objects and then electronics, I'm using the Trust video board. And then if we go still in this objects category, we go down to lighting. And then let's see, would that be, here we go, yeah, ceiling lighting. I used this Studio Spotlight for up here with some changes, but that's essentially it. I did put my own lights in there. And then I basically like cloned it. I say cloned, but I made an instance and then just, you know, moved it into position how I wanted it. But each one of these do have a light in them. And so let me make those visible. It's going to be a bit chaotic, but let's see them. So we'll go default, we'll close that up. Okay, cool. All right, now there's some things that I know I need to do. I need to put some footage on this screen. And when you actually get this screen in from the content browser, electronics, there we go. I'll just drag that in. we get this cube that is the main screen, and it says, you know, put video here. The problem I had with this is I didn't want the video to be on every side of this. I just wanted it to be on that front. So what I did with this guy was I took this cube and I made it editable, and I selected in polygon mode just that front polygon. Okay, and normally we'd right click and we'd split it off. We don't have that here. So what I need to do is I need to duplicate this object. And this will be, one object will be named screen, one object will be, you know, whatever, display cube, okay? And on the screen, I select that polygon. That's the one I want to keep. So then I will invert that selection and then delete everything else. And then on the display cube, I select the front polygon and delete it. So now I have these two objects. Oop, that's not it. Do I have solo? Is that solo? I don't have solo. That's fine. I'll just go here and I'll show you that this is the screen. It's just that flat plane. And then I have the rest of it right there. And what I want is I want to get that screen as a separate thing that I can put footage on. So I need its 3D position, and I need basically a mask so that things will fit onto it. That is called like an object buffer in Cinema 4D Lite. We use it as a LumaMat in After Effects. And the way that we set that up, that LumaMat here or object buffer, is by on the geometry object, I'm going to right click and I'm going to add the render tag compositing, okay? And then there's a tab here, object buffer, and I'm just going to say check that. And all we do is assign a number, and we can have a couple of them, so I can say like 1 and 10 for this guy, right? And then if I had like another screen, let me just duplicate this guy over here, and I'll call that screen 2. And in this, excuse me, in this one, I'll say, no, let's actually make this number 2 and 10. So object buffer number 1 is screen 1, object buffer number 2 is screen 2, and object buffer number 10 is both of them. So now I've defined these objects that I want to output. So now I need to say in the render settings up here to output these passes, okay? Because this isn't a full render. This is like a piece of the render. It's called here a multipass. So in the render settings, I'm going to click on this multipass button, and there's a whole bunch of options here, but what I want right now is object buffer. And I need to use the same numbers, but I can also name them. So this will be just hitting enter screen 1, and that's buffer number 1. I can control click, or let's just add another one and another one. And so this one will be screen 2, down arrow, screen all. And so screen 2 is object buffer number 2, and all screens is number 10. So now when this is rendered, and I'll just render real quick so I can show you this, we actually can see there's the object buffer or LumaMat for screen 1 that I just set up, and screen 2, and all screens, okay? And so awesome. I got that LumaMat, but I also need the position of these because in this scene, the camera is actually animated. If I jump into the camera, I've actually animated the camera. So I need the 3D position for those. And to get that, all I need to do is add another tag to these objects. That is the external compositing tag. And its sole purpose is to tell Cinema 4D to output the 3D data of these objects. Cinema 4D will automatically output 3D data for lights and cameras into After Effects through CineWare, but not every object in your scene. So we say which objects we want 3D data for using that external compositing tag. And then we can bring this into After Effects. And okay, so there's the render. We can minimize that. And how are we doing on time, you guys?
Good. You're at 36 after.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Lots of time. Okay, so this is like the final scene. It is saved. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this, and I'm gonna rebuild this guy. I know I'm not gonna get exactly the same thing, but I do wanna point out that, you know, of course there's the screen, the footage has been replaced, but we're still getting the like reflections and the lighting on those screens. And there's, you know, some lens flare from No Light Factory, which I think is just, you know, pretty relatively subtle, but it adds so much feel to it, which I really like. But anyway, how do we get from there to here? So I'm gonna make a new project. Ooh, new project. Don't save. And I'm going to start out with that Cinema 4D file. So let's go. Where did I put it? I did so many renders. Let's see, but I did save this for you guys. Let's see, demystifying, shared. So I have the one that I was just showing you. It is Light and Broadcasty C4D Lite week 3. We'll go in there. I'm just going to take that Cinema 4D file and add it as a project file. And
this would be a good thing to mention, actually, Darrin, as well, because typically when you're in After Effects and you want to create a C4D Lite file, you do it from the file menu. But what you're showing is just is a great reminder that you can actually use files that you previously have created, or that you're working with a team and they have a file that they give you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I sort of cheated a bit, didn't I? Because I started in Light, whereas pretty much everyone here may be starting in After Effects. And in that case, all you need to do is in a new project, just do new Maxon Cinema 4D file, and then, you know, name it, save it wherever you want, and then it'll open up Light, and then you can get to working in Cinema 4D Lite. As soon as you save it in Light, it'll automatically update it in After Effects because of the CineWare workflow that Adobe and Maxon have spent so much time on. So I'm just going to take this file now and I'm going to drag it down to make a composition with it. I like to do it that way because it's automatically going to use Cinema 4D's render settings for the you know, resolution and everything. Now, I mentioned that those object buffers were a multipass, right? But what we're seeing here is like a preview. So we need to say in the effects controls for this CineWare layer that, first of all, the renderer should be the full renderer or current. And by current, it means in Cinema 4D Lite, in your render settings, you see you can have actually different render settings. So whichever one is currently active, whichever one has the white little box with a dot, that's the current one that will be used in After Effects when this is set to current. And we need this to be the full current, full renderer in order to use the Cinema 4D multipass workflow. So I've turned that on. Yeah.
Can I just interject something really quick? Like one of the things that messed me up a little bit is that the renderer options are different on Mac versus PC. I don't know if it's still that same way, but and the Mac, I forget, it's like OpenGL and a couple different options, so it might not be the same, but they do similar things. Just pointing that out.
Are you talking about the render options in Cinema 4D or in
CineWare?
In CineWare.
Yeah, and the renderer drop down. Yeah, they don't look the same on Mac versus PC.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, I did not know that. I'm totally a PC. Yeah,
Those
so
are the options in there on the Mac right now too, from what I see.
Oh,
So maybe they
awesome.
made those match. Yeah.
Yay. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Then forget everything I just said, and sorry, go back to what you're doing.
I know what you're talking about, Chad, though, because
It used to.
yeah, that's right.
Uh-huh.
Cinema 4D's viewport used to be OpenGL. So that was an option here.
Fantastic. I'm so glad there's parity now. That's really cool.
This is a great topic, actually, because we've had a question about how do you make sure you got the latest version of both After Effects and also Cinema 4D Lite. And somebody just asked that in the chat, and I was in the middle of typing out an answer to it. So you'll see that in a second when I submit it. But that's something that we can just have a catch-up conversation towards the end of this webinar, because Christine's got a couple of good pointers about keeping up with the latest version of After Effects on there, as well as how you can manage this with Cinema.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't need to do that now then.
We don't want to interrupt you too much. But that's since a couple of people have mentioned it, we thought that'd be good to finish up with.
Okay. All right. So, there's a lot of atmosphere in here, and you can see that there's actually between these cubes that's being knocked out, there's this alpha channel. I actually don't want it to see that alpha channel. By default, CineWare layers will see and use the alpha channel, as we can see here. But in this case, that creates a problem for me. So I'm gonna interpret this footage so that it ignores the alpha channel. And then when this updates, this won't be black. We'll actually see that environmental fog even in this empty space. So I'll give this a minute, and it's actually rendering. It's using Cinema 4D's renderer in After Effects, and that's one of the really cool things about the CineWare workflow with After Effects is that we actually don't render out of Cinema 4D Lite. We render out of After Effects. But now you can see I got that alpha channel's gone, awesome. And I need to get the 3D data from here. So in the CineWare options, I started talking about multi-passes, but I haven't showed you one yet. We'll get there. Let me just turn that off. Sorry, everybody. Let's get the 3D data and everything out of this. So we can just simply click on this extract button. And when we do that, it's going to actually give us all of the cameras and lights automatically. And then those objects that I put the external compositing tag on, I get those as solids. And these colors and the size of these solids is defined in that external compositing tag. So if we come down here, video screen 2, external compositing tag, it is a solid 900 by 600 pixels in After Effects. And then I set the color, and you can choose where the anchor point should go. It's just a personal preference. I did have to turn off cache for some reason. But then when I clicked on extract, I got exactly what I wanted here. And what I want to do is I want to replace these with some footage. So let's get some footage in here. I think I probably need to actually share this footage or make sure that I can share it. But let me go import recent, and I'll say, let's see, Simon's name strap, and I'm going to also get the Redshift demo reel. And to replace this 3D solid with this footage, which is essentially this really fantastic project. I'm sorry, I can't remember the author's name. Simon, maybe you can help me out. But he put this together with Red Giant tools. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, so
sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, Darrin. Jason here, he's actually done a number of sessions on this where he breaks down exactly how he created the expressions for that. So I'll post that link as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to hold Alt. I have the video screen one selected. I have the footage I want to replace it with. I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to click and drag and drop it while holding Alt. And then I've replaced that solid with this footage. The size is different, so I'll go ahead and hold Shift while adjusting the size of it. And I want it to be a little bigger than that screen. Okay, now it's black because the video starts on black. So I'll go forward a couple of frames, and that's gonna force CineWare to re-render this bottom layer, and that's fine. And let's temporarily turn off all of these lights and those additional screens just to clear up our view. And come on, footage. Come to Darrin. But one of the things we're going to see is that it's a little hard. It needs a little bit of love to get sort of set into this atmosphere. So I use Universe Shine to give it some glowing rays, and then some Universe Blur to actually make it look more like the screen is actually sort of not perfect, right? And it's not entirely black. And also we've lost the reflections on here. So one thing is I definitely want this to be added to everything underneath, the reflections on there and that lighting. And then I actually want it to glow a bit. So I'm gonna do some, I'm gonna use some of those universe features that I just mentioned, but I need to sort of separate it out. So I'm gonna select, oh, and you know what? The whole object buffer thing, I should have done this on screen 2. So I think, let me do this on screen 2. I'm just gonna replace the redshift footage on screen 2. And I'm actually shifting gears here because it's already behind screen 1. And I wanna point out why we need to use those object buffers. Okay, so cool. Now I can't really see it. I think this has to do with the material options here. So I'm actually going to say accept shadows and lights off. Okay, so we're still seeing Simon. It's rendering in the background. We'll give it a second. And then Simon will be hidden, and we will see, there we go, the redshift footage. But it should not be visible because it's behind screen 1. This is what the object buffer is for. Let's get that in here. I'm going to copy this CineWare layer, Control or Command C and V. I'm going to drag it above. I'm going to hit Enter to rename it Screen 2 Mask. And I'm going to say in its CineWare layer controls that I want this to be a multipass, and I want this multipass specifically to be for screen 2. And I'll hit OK. And then let's hide the visibility of it. It is rendering, and I'll set the footage to be use LumaMat screen 2 mask. And we'll give this a second to render and update. So, I mean, this is one price that we pay for being able to have Cinema 4D Lite here, is that we have to wait for it to render. But I think it's totally worth it. And when we do eventually, as most users tend to do, upgrade to the full version, then you can render everything out, and then the workflow in After Effects is even faster.
There's a good comment on this, actually. I think this was Christine who wrote this in on the question answer, but somebody asked a very similar question about sharing memory cache. And in the new version of After Effects with multi-frame rendering, you have the ability to set the preference of how much CPU you want to use and share with other resources. Was that you who typed that, Christine?
It was.
I thought so. So you do have the capability. Any other comments you want to make on that about sharing resources?
Just that by default, the setup is to only allow 10% for other resources so that you can really take advantage of all of the power of your system. So if you really are running into issues with having both Cinema 4D open at the same time, Cinema 4D Lite, or if you have Cinema 4D open at the same time, you may want to shift that preference, which is available, I think, in the memory and disk cache usage under preferences. Yeah, go ahead on in
memory
there.
and disk cache.
Sure. No, memory. Yeah, you'll find it when you come up. Go down under memory and performance. There we go. So right there in the bottom half, there's a CPU event. Yeah, and it's set to 10% by default. So you could always change that if you're finding that other things need to have more power and After Effects is sucking up too much.
You know, one thing that I found when I was working on this that was sort of frustrating me was that it would continue to render frames in the background.
So that's the cache frames when idle. You just had it there, right there. If you go back down to your, yep, that setting there. So right now, this was another new addition that came out in October, was it will just, if you leave it alone for about 8 seconds at the moment, it will start to, and that's also a setting you can change in the preferences. It will start to render the cache frames for you so that you actually come back if you've gone to get a cup of coffee or honestly just looked at an email. But if that's getting in your way, you can turn that completely off with the option you just showed over there, or you can actually change the length of time that the idle time is before it'll start to cache those frames.
So I think I just turned it, yeah, I just turned it on.
Okay.
So if I just sit here and wait.
So if you just sit here and talk to us for a bit, you'll notice that green bar start to change as to what's been rendered. Now, if it's a hefty render, it may take a little while to start seeing some things.
And this is a little hefty, so I'll actually hear my my GPU fans spin up before I see that green bar change.
There you go.
I'm hearing the fans right now, but yeah, that actually sort of slowed me down. So that's a
good thing to know.
Yeah. So
and also the other addition with those, since you can see it right there on the green, those little green bars of the 5 millisecond, 4 millisecond. The other thing we gave you is a new composition profiler, which is the little snail button in the very bottom left there. But when that's turned on, which is what you have right now, it shows you where you might have some slowdowns, what layers are taking up a lot of time in your render, so that you can make some smart choices as to what you've got going on if it's really taking too long to render and you just need it to speed up a bit.
Okay, that's this tiny little guy right here.
Exactly, that's little snail. Oscar, go.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I found that, and you know, I do want to point out I'm using the beta version.
Good job.
It's been so stable. I've been so happy.
I'm very glad you said that, and that's a big thing that we want to make sure everybody understands is our beta is very stable. It can run alongside your live production version as well in case you're nervous about it, but we work very hard to keep it stable so that you can go and try new things, such as this is the first place that the most recent version of Cinema 4D, when we changed over to R25, it was available in beta for a couple months before it came out to the full version so that we could have everybody test it. So if you want to not only see what new features are coming, because they always come here first, but also get access to those early versions of things, the beta is the place to be.
Yeah, and I think that you did you mention that was also like the someplace you could actually access this version of Cinema 4D Lite before it was released.
Absolutely, because we were between Maxon and After Effects. We weren't quite ready at our big release in October to have R25 included. We wanted to make sure that there weren't as many bugs, and we wanted to make sure it was more stable. So we sent it out to beta first, and you could have accessed it starting then back in the beta before it came out in the end of December, I think it was, that we updated to R25. Yeah, it's a useful thing to give a go, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've been enjoying. I was a little scared at first, but as soon as I did, I was like, this is actually very cool, and
Yay!
it has not created any problems for me.
Oh, love it.
So I want to, gosh, so short on time. I got like minutes left. So what I want to show is how I used some of the Universe plugins in After Effects to create the glow, because you can see how that looks right now. And let's see, as we know, setting this to add helps a lot. Super Comp actually has some features to fit footage into the backgrounds, and I want to show this glow first, and then depending on timing, I can show you my Super Comp version of it. But I took the footage, the LumaMat, I took the screen center 3D solid and the camera, copied, pasted it, I pre-comped it. If you rewatch the footage, you'll see that I just did that a moment ago. And what I want to do here is I want to add a new solid adjustment layer. I'm going to call this Shine, and I'll put that right above the mask and turn on adjustment layer. And onto this, I want to add the our Red Giant Trapcode Shine on here. And let's see, I actually want that shine because we can actually sort of define from which point this shine should be, emanating, should be, what's the word I'm looking for? Someone help. Can't speak English hard.
Yeah, emanating from is right. That's good.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And I actually want it to be based on this 3D null, because in Cinema 4D, I knew I sort of wanted to mark the middle of all these screens. So I added where is it? It's just a null object. I basically just added this null object, and it's like, name it center, and then I dragged it down, and then I added the external compositing tag. And so that came with, and that's what this screen center guy is, except it's not a solid, it's just a 3D layer. Anyway, so in Shine, I want that to be the source point. So let's see, Hashi actually showed me this, this expression. I don't even know how to spell expression, but I can do this. I can hold Alt and I can click on the little clock next to the source point. And then I can take this expression's little pick whip guy and tell it to choose that 3D layer right there, screen center. And then I can type in the expression dots to capital C comp. And then in these parentheses, I got to go like bracket and then 0, 0, 0, and that is it. And that will place that source point where this 3D null from Cinema 4D Lite is. So as the camera moves, it should always shine from there. Now, I actually don't want it to be red. I want it to match the color of the footage. So let's go to, that ray length is a little long. Where is the colorize? I want it to actually not be colorized. I'll just say none, and it'll use that footage. That ray length is quite intense. So let's just cut it down to 2, and let's see how this looks back over here. And so we'll give it a second or a few to update. But what we're going to see is that it's just very hard. It's just very harsh. It looks like it just looks like it doesn't quite fit. It's not soft enough. There's so much fog here that it needs also to be blurred a bit, and it could also use some noise. I mean, look at that. So this, I need to just sort of bring it down and add that blur. So I'm going to actually copy this adjustment layer. I'm going to name it blur and remove the shine effect. And I'm going to use instead universe blur. And I'll put that on there, and relatively low with, let's try like 10, maybe too low. Let's try 100. Yeah, that's fine. It is a little heavy-handed, but I think that will be okay. Let's see. So the shine is really strong. What I can do is just, let's see, let's set this blend mode to none and bring down that shine opacity so it's a little more subtle. And also I have some noise in the fog. I also want here, so I can just use this fractal noise to add noise to that shine. We can turn off blur to see that. And then what I did is I think I adjusted the overall size of it so that it was larger to fit more in line with the noise from C4D Lite in its lights. And then we'll go blur, and let's come back over here. Give that a second to update. But now it's like all I have to do to, anytime I want to change the feature on this screen is just replace really just the footage that I'm using here with something else. And yeah, everything will just sort of track and fit. So it's, let's see, I have 1:02 Eastern time. I did do some, I got some other stuff to show, but what do you guys think? What kind of questions are there?
We did have a question actually about the thing you just mentioned, Darrin, is any suggestions about how you might make sure that if you were adding elements inside Cinema, making sure that they line up correctly in After Effects? Because the person asking the question said that sometimes they don't line up exactly in the same 3D space.
Yeah, you know what? I actually encountered that with this guy a bit. So like, here, let's check this out. I got, let's lose all that. I'm gonna add a cube. And this is essentially what that screen is, right? It's this cube. And I'm gonna make it really big intentionally. And let me just go save project as to this PC desktop, and this is just cube. All right, now I'm gonna actually do that thing I did is I'll have this one cube and then this one be the screen, okay? And I'll make them both editable so I can do that thing where I get this polygon. Oh, that's interesting. Where I get this polygon. I think I accidentally turned on soft selection. Okay. Invert the selection with U, then I, delete that. And then on the original cube, just delete the front face. So I got the two. And then on this screen, I'm going to add that external compositing tag. Okay. So now let's save this project. I'm going to come back to After Effects and add that file. So let's, oh, my mouse is acting weird. Here we go, Cube AE. We'll just drag that there and then make a new composition with it. There we go. And if I extract the 3D data, you're going to see exactly that problem where the axis for that screen is actually sort of off. Let's see, I think I want, okay, I am not good with After Effects cameras. So maybe Christine can help me out here. I want to actually use a centered comp camera here so I can rotate around, right, and see this, the position of this relative to.
Except in After Effects, you won't be able to do that because once it comes over here, it's now flattened out and you have to rotate that back in Cinema 4D.
All right, so I'm just going to come around here. We can already see right there, the axis is in the middle of that cube, right? So I save this, I come back here, it's automatically going to update, and we can see it's actually, it's actually pretty close, but I actually want it to be dead on. So what we can do is we can select that, that object, and we can go to Tools, Axis, and choose Center Axis 2. And that will center the axis of that object to the common midpoint of all of its geometry. All right. Now, if you actually want to center one object on another, then here's something you can do. Let me get a cylinder on, let's say, the X, and I want it to be like on the top edge here. All right. So I'm going to make it a child of the screen, keeping in mind that the screen's axis is right in the middle. That cylinder, I'm going to go to its coordinates, or better yet, oh, we don't have it here. I'm going to go to its coordinates, excuse me, and I'm on these little arrows. I'm just going to right click, right click, right click, and then I can just move it right up there. And it's centered right on it. And now it's just a matter like control click drag, right? And then I can change it to +Y, move that up and over, adjust the length, control click drag, right? I'm starting to build up a custom frame, right? Does that help? Does that answer the question?
That's great, Darrin, absolutely. And the advantage of having 4 sessions for this topic is because anything that we wanted to delve into a little more deeply, that we're doing exactly that next week, because I know we're up to time, and we wanted to give Christine a couple of minutes just to show something really cool that actually Adobe have recently added to the After Effects beta. So what we can do is we've seen a lot of questions in the chat. We've answered as many of them as we can, but we're going to continue these examples and delve a little more deeply next Monday as well. But this has been really incredible, Darrin, and I've been saving up this comment right from the start when you just added stuff from the asset browser and were able to populate your scene and do these really quickly, which is one of the fantastic things you can do, even in Light as well. I know we touched on it a couple of weeks ago, but it's such a great way to get started quickly.
Awesome. Yay, thank you. Cool. Yeah, I want to see what Christine has.
Christine's got a great little cool thing. And I think the right word is thank you for using that clip of my face.
You're
I'm
welcome.
going to say thank you. I thought that was great.
Great. I've sent the screen to you, Christine, now. So you should get that button saying share it. Yep. There we go. Yep.
I did. Okay. I'm just going to talk really quickly here, because I know we're late, on to expand on that beta concept. Very first of all is, how do you get it? Because I know that's a big question. If you've got your Creative Cloud for After Effects, then you've got your Creative Cloud app, and you have access along the left here to the beta apps of any of the Adobe products that have a beta, and After Effects is one of them. You can load it from there, or as you notice, I also have in my updates, I've got an update. We actually update the beta every day. You don't have to, that is up to you, but we do always make sure it's stable, and we always have new things coming. So let's go ahead and open it up, and I'll show you a little bit about what you can find in there. First thing, when you've got the beta, there's a little icon over here. It looks like a flask, so that you can always click there to see what's new, what things have come in recently, and also if we've got a couple things that we want some feedback on. Well, we always want feedback, but if we have specific things that we'd like to get your rating on, you can go into rate features here and let us know what you think about them, which is pretty great. Specifically in here, we have a couple new additions that are useful to our 3D folks here from our cinema group. We have this draft 3D way of viewing things, which now gives you a ground plane and this extended viewport, which I'm going to go out a little bit. So we'll see right now, normally in After Effects, you can only really see this preview window of the size of your composition. And you see that we've got a bunch of stuff happening outside of it, but I can't really tell what it is unless I move it within that window. Now that I can click on my extended viewer, I can now see what all of my layers are and what's going on with all those, which is very nifty. What we also have in here to help with the 3D picture, as we also see right now, After Effects, 3D is really a bunch of, like we just saw with the cinema, with the box that Darrin was building there. You bring it in here, they are a bunch of cards in 3D space. It's kind of this 2.5D space, right? But if we want to be able to see what pieces of those are going to render together, we call those a 3D bin, where things are connected in together. We've now added in this icon or this new UI around it that helps to show you what's been binned together and what might get broken if, let's say, I were to add in here just at, or I could just hit the wrong button. There we go. Let's try again. If I were to add in here a 2D solid and maybe even some, let's say, 2D text, that's really small. Let's go a little bit bigger. All of this is now going to sit right in front of my 2D layers because it's not part of the 3D world. If I were to move these down into the middle in between my 3D pieces, some of them move in front, some of them don't. But now what we'll see is we actually can tell with the UI what's been breaking that bin. And it will also show you what types of things like nulls and lights or cameras that are non-rendering, non-bin breaking items so that you can get a better visual picture as to what you're doing with your 3D scenes, which is kind of useful as you're building up more complicated ones.
That's really cool. I actually stumbled across that while I was working, and I was like, oh man, this, and then I checked and I saw it was like a new feature in the beta. And
it is a feature in the beta. Yeah. And then the other pretty exciting one in the beta, and then we can go here, is this is another one. We listen very carefully to our customers, and that's why please send the feedback. We're always paying attention. One of the things that we were always hearing was that shape layers are kind of a pain to deal with, because if I want to, for instance, I really wanted to get in here and change the color of this rectangle in the middle, I have to go into my timeline and scroll down and find that it's inside this layer and down in, okay, now I can get the color. Well, instead what we've done is we've now added a properties panel. I'm going to open it up a little wider because I'm on a small screen here, where now as I click around, you'll see that I'm getting my the basic properties of each of those shapes so that it's much easier for me to access what I want to change directly from this panel without having to go into the timeline, although it also does open up that thing within the timeline. If I want to find it there, I can multiple select items and change all of them at once, which is pretty darn cool. I think I didn't actually multiply select them, but you get the picture. It's a properties panel to make it a little easier to find the properties that you need to use the most, including your layer transforms over here. We will continue to be adding more things into this. This is just the introduction of it, but we hope that this is going to make your workflow a little easier.
That's very cool. That reminds me of the attribute manager in Cinema 4D Lite. Like it's going to show you the settings for whatever it is you clicked on.
Very similar to that, or similar to the effects control panel where, like you were showing in CineWare, all of those controls are over in one area. Or if you're, coming from Illustrator or Photoshop, this is where you're more used to finding your attributes or your properties. So we're trying to make it easier for you to find what you need.
Quick question for you, Christine. We've had a question from Antonio. Can you save projects in the beta version and then open them up in the latest official version?
You certainly can. Now, obviously, if it's a new feature that isn't available over there, then you're not going to be able to see that feature. Like you're not going to be able to save this project, go over in there and use properties panel because it's not there. But this project would open in the other one because I've saved it and it's all transferable across. Yes. So you shouldn't be afraid of using the beta, which is a new feeling for those of us who've been doing production for a long time. You usually stay the heck away from betas. This is a very different beta world, which is cool.
Don't fear it.
Don't fear the beta. That would be my big message.
I'm sure there's a song with that theme in it.
I think you should make it for the next call and I'll see that. I'll look forward to it.
Fantastic. This is great stuff, Christine. Absolutely. And really speeds up the ability to work quickly and get those iterations done. Fantastic.
That is our hope. Yay.
Cool. I'm going to grab the screen from you, if I may, and we'll just finish up. Thank you, everyone, for allowing us to overrun slightly. It's always a balance. You know us by now, don't you? If it's us, we're going to overrun. What was
Too
that?
much good stuff.
A trainer never overruns. They only finish exactly when they mean to.
Clearly.
Or something, might be paraphrasing something else there. So thank you again, and thank you for all the great comments all the way through. Thank you for the questions, and also for the lovely, kind comments towards the end about how much you've enjoyed it. That's fantastic to see. And we'll be continuing this next week, where we finish up on the 4th session, where we'll delve a little deeper into some of those workflows, and also answer some of your questions about anything that we've shown over our last few weeks. And don't forget, as well as being able to see what's coming up, this is the Maxon website, so maxon.net, and this is the events page. So under news, this is the second button down, go to events, and you can see what we've got coming up. We've also been recording this, as well as we've been recording all our previous sessions. So if you jump on here in a couple of hours' time, we'll have this very recording, and we'll add in all those links that we were talking about to those different sessions, including Jason's expression session, and also Jonas's tracking session for comparing After Effects Tracker to CineWare 4D Tracker as well. And thank you especially to everyone here. Fantastic demos. Chad, really great workflow for this, Darrin, as well. Thank you for sharing that. And a lot of people have been commenting on that as well all the way through. So it's really useful to see. Plus that extra kind of problem solving aspect of how do you get those axes organized. So that's a great little tip to be able to do that in cinema. And thank you especially to Christine as well, for taking us through those small little but very, very important details, like the new multi-frame rendering setting, move off 10% if you're doing it with cinema.
If you need it. Absolutely.
Excellent. And one last little reminder, don't forget, next week, next Wednesday, Elly's kicking off the Redshift Getting Started session. Is it Intro to Redshift, Getting Started with Redshift, all you've ever wanted to know about Redshift?
All of the above.
All the above. Each will have a new title for it. Fantastic. Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us again. Don't forget, reach out if you've got any questions, training@maxon.net, and then we'll help you cover those too. Great. So in the meantime, stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you on next week's session.
Take care, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Christine.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.